Tributes are pouring in for legendary LA Dodgers pitcher Fernando Valenzuela. The star pitcher died last night at the age of 63.
Man, Fernando died. That's the end of an era. I'm Andy Bernstein.
Todd Bernstein. And yes, Andy, end of an era and right before the World Series starts.
Unbelievable timing. You know, Fernando was part of the 1981 Dodger team where they won, but his impact in Los Angeles was off the charts. And I personally, and you as well, have had a chance to learn all about Fernando and the impact that he had on the Dodgers with all the great players that the Dodgers had playing for them. If you talk to people in LA of a certain age, they're all going to tell you that Fernando was the one who made the biggest impact in the city and as a Dodger. And we're going to play a quick clip from our upcoming movie called Beat LA.
Me and my dad were at Dodger Stadium when Fernando Valenzuela threw out his first game. And this is giving me the chills right now.
Fernando Valenzuela is hard to say no to.
He came across at the perfect time. Chubby little guy. You know, he was supposed to be 21. He looked like he was 51.
It's a testament to who LA is that the most impactful Dodger wasn't the prettiest Dodger. He was the most LA Dodger because he connected the team to the city.
What else can be said but Viva Valenzuela?
Greatest, and I think everybody here has Fernando fever.
Because of the makeup of Los Angeles and the fans, a lot of Hispanics, a lot of Mexicans.
The Lakers, I think, feel like us. The Dodgers look like us. And that's all Fernando.
I'm third generation American from Mexico.
And the Latins love baseball.
My family has always been heavily enthusiastic.
A lot of them were displaced because of the Dodgers, they erecting Dodger Stadium. So over the years, with their work in the community, I think they were able to rectify, unite the Latin Mexican community.
Because of Fernando.
Because of Forget.
We were all fans rooting for the same team.
Did a big for the whole Los Angeles community and the persona of what LA is all about. That was something special.
And you look at jerseys around the city. You go to the beach, you go to Orange County, you go to Ventura, you see Fernando jerseys everywhere.
So, Andy, what did you know about Fernando before, embarking on LA and starting this film project?
I knew that he was, Fernandomania. I mean, he came and he electrified a crowd in 1980, and it was 80 or 81. But 81, there was a strike year, and Fernando electrified a city. And it was so funny because I never really thought about him as the Dodger that really would shape things for that city because, you had the glamour boy of Steve Garvey, and you had all these other players. You had the glamour boy of Steve Garvey and all these other players. So you would never think that Fernando Valenzuela would be the one, but he was the one. But I didn't know to the extent of it. And I learned it as doing our project, as we went along. I started to learn more about who this guy was and the impact he had on the city.
So, before you went to LA and spent years on the ground, probably really didn't understand who the makeup of a Dodger fan was in LA, because from 3,000 miles away, looks a little different on television than when you see on the ground who really is the Dodger core fan.
Yeah, the Dodger core fan is really the Latino. The Latino community is, really is the tried and true fan, and they pack them in. And the Dodgers are really committed to that Latino fan base. And that wasn't always the case back in the, when Dodger Stadium opened up, they displaced the Mexican community at Chavez Ravine. And so there was a friction, there was a fray. And then when Fernando came back and they brought Fernando in, he was the first Mexican player to take the field, and brought that community back to come into Dodger Stadium again, where they didn't have that. So he really transcended. I would argue that he made the Dodgers the franchise that they are today because of Fernando.
I also would think that if you looked at Fernando, how he didn't look like a fit athlete. He looked like one of the fans.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part of it, because he wasn't fit when he was playing. He wasn't fit. He didn't speak any English when he first started, but he was, he was not the quintessential LA what you perceive to be the quintessential LA player. Whereas Steve Garvey, you would think of Steve Garvey, the good-looking guy, but the impact of Fernando was felt far more than you could ever give he was more than a pitcher to that franchise.
Yeah, he was the soul of that team.
He was the soul, and he really changed the narrative. He changed perspective. When I started doing this project and interviewing people, he came up all the time as one of the Mount Rushmore of Los Angeles. He was put there for Los Angeles sports, Fernando. So his impact was felt, and so,
which is interesting because he doesn't have the championships that a Magic or a Kareem has, or the Laker or the UCLA dynasties. It's not like the championships were there, but his impact and what he did and his connection is as big as anybody else in that city.
Yeah, he spoke to the people. I mean, he was the people. He represented the people, whereas people could see themselves. The community could see themselves, and all these people that we interviewed, and the famous people, regular fans, all have a place for Fernando. And
how do you think his passing will affect the World Series?
Oh, it's so funny you say that, Todd, because the only thing I can think about is I think it's going to inspire the Dodgers for sure. Dave Roberts is a very, a great manager of remembering the Dodger tradition. He's very aware of it. He's very, he tries to instill that in his players. So there's no doubt that I think it'll give him an added push. And it was funny, in 1977 or 78, the Dodgers lost Junior Gilliam. And I think it was 78, but they were playing the Yankees. And it was right at the time that the series was going on. So there was always a moment of silence for Junior Gilliam before every game. And they had a patch on the, a number 2 for Junior Gilliam. So I expected 34 patch. And, who knows? I could see them putting a Fernando jersey in the dugout, hanging up in the dugout, but I could see them definitely rallying behind.
Yeah, I would think it's going to help singular their focus and narrow the distractions, and all the pressure. It's like Fernando passes the legend of the team, and he wasn't in death age. He was in his early 60s.
No, he was 63 years old, and he was doing, and it's funny because he actually he became he was on the Spanish broadcast for the Dodgers, and he didn't know a lick of English when he first came to the Dodgers. And he was kind of this unknown, like, where's this guy come from all of a sudden? And there's a great quote by Vince Scully saying, if you're up in the heavens and, throw your sombrero. I forgot the quote, but he, became a father and a grandfather. And over time, staying in LA, he became, he's revered in Los Angeles. And
I think with the World Series coming up, the America is going to get reintroduced to Fernando Valenzuela.
I hope so, because he was
the younger generation.
Yeah, he was pure. Like, it was pure. It was a different time when Fernando came up. And you got to realize he came up around the strike. So, baseball was not, this was in 1981, the strike, and half the season was gone, if I remember correctly. And his impact around that time was just, he brought a purity. He brought a purity back to the game, that this almost like the natural, like, here's this guy coming from Mexico out of the clear blue and just electrifying the baseball world. And that, with Vince Scully, telling the story, I think also was part of it. It was almost like Superman and Perry White or Jimmy Olsen. Like, I don't think the two could have been the same had it not been for Scully and his storytelling ability combined with, Scully's storytelling ability combined with Fernando Valenzuela and his story, I think formed a combo that just made it even larger than life.
He will be missed.
He will be missed. Rest in peace, Fernando.